Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organizations, opportunities, and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Davy Au, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Greg David, the communication specialist of AMI, also known as Accessible Media Inc. AMI is a media company that entertains, informs, and empowers Canadians with disabilities through their offering of relevant original content. Thanks for joining us today, Greg.
Thanks so much for having me, Davey.
It's our pleasure. To begin, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to work at AMI?
Oh, wow. Great question. Well, I have a background in journalism. And so when I got out of college, I was writing for TV Guide magazine. And so television and content has always kind of fascinated me alongside print journalism. And when I left TV Guide, I was kind of looking for kind of the what's next thing. So I started to run my own website, and then I started to do some freelance work with AMI. I would go in and talk about the Canadian television industry or the television industry kind of on the whole on a couple of AMI's AMI audio shows. And so I kind of got into it that way. I just, met the people at the company. Really enjoyed what they were doing, and a friend of mine worked at the company as well. And so when an opening came up in the marketing and communications team, I applied for the job, and luckily I got it. And I've been with the company now full time for 6 years.
That's absolutely amazing. I wish, personally, as a creative myself, I wish that my story were the least bit the same. I only just started getting started sinking my teeth into screenwriting and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
during the early parts of my college days, but that's a completely different can of worms. But we could always save that for another time. But the next question I got for you is, I personally everyone on the team has done some research on your website, and we see that you've got different areas where we can find your content. So of those different areas, do you think you could tell us a little bit more about that, or maybe even the AMI Plus streaming platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk about all those things. I did want to mention kind of off the top that, AMI has been around for many, many years, and you mentioned it off the top with our mission statement, but we create content for and by the disability community, whether it's an invisible disability or a visible disability. Members of the community are always involved in anything that we make. And I just wanted to kind of give you a couple of stats on AMI before we kind of get into some of the other stuff. But for those that have basic cable, AMI is broadcast into just under 10 million homes. So if you have basic cable, I know a lot of people nowadays are streaming only, and we can talk about AMI Plus. Obviously, Davey, you already mentioned that. But AMI serves 6.2 million Canadians with disabilities. So we always like to let people know, like I said off the top, that we create content by and for the disability community. But yeah, do you want me to get right into our streaming platform, which is what we kind of we're really excited about?
Go ahead, by all means.
Sure. So that's AMI Plus, which you mentioned, and with all of the Netflixes and the Disney Pluses and the Craves out there, providing streaming content for folks that don't necessarily have basic cable, AMI really wanted to jump into the fold, and so late last year we launched AMI Plus. And so if you go to AMIPLUS.ca, you're going to find all of AMI's content there. We have cooking shows. There's a show called Dish with Mary. She's a member of the blind, partially sighted community and travels across the country, meeting chefs and cooking alongside them. We have a travel show called Postcards From, where our host, who has a limb difference, visits different communities across the country, showcasing not only the people that live there and the things that you can do, but also whether the things that you can do there are fully accessible to members of the disability community. We've got Employable Me, which is kind of a dragon's den for entrepreneurs who are in the disability community and looking to take their businesses to the next level. And we've even got the Squeaky Wheel Canada, which is kind of a spoof. It's a spoof show on kind of The Onion, where they take it's satire and they poke fun at the members of the disability community, poke fun at the ableist community through sketches. And what we're really excited about when you go to that website to stream this content, Davey, is that it is set up with accessibility preferences at the top. So if you are a member of the blind or partially sighted community, and you need to have the contrast changed so that you can see the screen better, if you need to change the line spacing, the font, anything like that, you can do that so that the website is fully accessible to you. And we also embed captions into all of our videos as well. So if you are a member of the deaf or hard of hearing community, that you can access those captions. And perhaps the most important thing that we do with our programming, because when AMI started, we were making content specifically for the blind and partially sighted community in mind. We have something called described video. And that means that the hosts of the show or the guests on the show are describing what they're doing while they are doing it, so that members of the blind and partially sighted community can use their mind's eye to imagine what is happening in the scene. And it really helps with the storytelling and the accessibility with that storytelling.
That is an absolute that's absolutely amazing, Greg. I mean, I'm honestly speechless at that. I'm honestly speechless with what you said, with what you told me at that. But AMI and AMI Plus, honestly, the fact that they seem, at least just by your description of it, leagues ahead of the Netflixes and Disney Pluses and Craves out there, it definitely would serve. It would definitely serve the disability community well. And I'm sure that all of our listeners are thankful. The listeners and your potential subscribers are all the more thankful for it. To that end, are there any restrictions to accessing AMI? Is it only on one television provider or one platform?
Yeah, so if you want to watch AMI TV on basic cable, and you do have basic cable, then for the most part, if you are Rogers, you can see us or check out our AMI content on channel 888. And if you're Bell, I believe it's 48 is the channel. So yeah, you can access our content there. We're also on YouTube. We don't put all of our content up on YouTube, but if you search for Accessible Media Inc. on YouTube, then you'll be able to find our content there. We also have a whole suite of podcasts that are available on your favorite podcasting platform. Again, if you just search for Accessible Media Inc. on your favorite podcasting platform, there's a whole pile of podcasts that you'll be able to get there that I could give more detail about if you want to. I did want to go back to something that you said, Davey, about showing that our content is leaps and bounds above some of the Netflixes and others are out there. Part of the reason that our content is so accessible is because that we're mandated to have our content be accessible. Part of AMI having a license in Canada given by the CRTC is that we make our content accessible. So that's the reason that we do it. Now, that said, a lot of people will say, oh, it's so hard to make things accessible. All it really is just a change of mindset. It's those simple things like making sure that instead of using AI to get your captions, you use a human so that things are spelled right. There's the sentence, the grammar is correct, and things like that. Or having your host explain what they're doing while they're doing it. It's those little things that if other networks did it, of course it might put us out of business. But if they did it, then they would be doing what we're doing, and that's really what It only takes a couple of extra steps to make your content fully accessible. So we're really proud to that we're doing that.
Well, and that's amazing to hear too. To that now. Say, for example, now in terms of putting stuff out there for people to access and whatnot. What if a person wanted to be part of any of AMI shows? Is there an audition process of any kind?
Ooh, that's a great question. So if you follow us on our social media, so we're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on TikTok and Instagram, and like YouTube, I said before. When we do put casting announcements up, or when we're looking for people to join any of our shows, then we'll more than likely put them up on Facebook, but we do put them up on TikTok and Instagram as well. So again, search for Accessible Media Inc. on any of those social media platforms, and there will be casting information. We just actually closed casting on a show called Got Game. That went into a second season, and Got Game is all about the younger audience, 20 somethings that are all members of the disability community, and they all get together in a game bar, where you play board games, and they play fully accessible board games while just talking about their lives. And it's something that was important for us to make because our programming tends to skew a little bit older. And so this was the first time that we ever had a show that was geared to 20 somethings. Because disability can affect anybody at any stage in their life. I think a lot of people tend to think of disability as something that happens when you get older, but it can happen in any stage in life. And so we really wanted to spotlight the 20 somethings in the disability community, the things that they like to talk about, the things that frustrate them, the things that they love, all while playing a board game. So yeah, just closed casting on that. But again, to answer your question, if you follow us on any of our social media channels, then you'll be able to catch up and find out about more casting opportunities.
Well, and to all of our listeners, you heard it here. If you're if you're interested, yeah, look up AMI on any of their social media platforms, and if there's any casting calls coming up, then if you're interested, then jump in. Well, this is an absolute that's absolutely amazing. To that end, segueing slightly away from the audition process. Say, for example, if someone wanted to be involved in the sense of content creation, if, say, for example, they had an idea for content on AMI, how would they go about submitting it?
Great question. So what you can do is email info, so info at ami.ca. If you do have a show idea or content idea, podcast idea, something like that, email us at that email address, and I'll either myself or a member of the marketing and communications team will get that, and we can give you more details. There are some documents that you need to fill out if you do have an idea pitch for a project. But yeah, if you start by emailing us at info@ami.ca, we can get you on that road to doing that. The other way that you can do it is that if you are a student and you are interested or enrolled in broadcasting at this point, or you're interested in kind of media overall, we offer paid internships and paid apprenticeships. And we have actually a couple of shows, Got Game being one of them, where one of our paid interns came in and he had the idea for this show. His name is Josh, and he came in and he learned how to put together a show pitch. And he pitched it to members of the marketing and communications team, but also senior management. We paired him up with a production company, and Got Game got made. So start with that info email address, and we can help you out on the road to creating your own content, hopefully with AMI.
And that's absolutely amazing to hear. I mean, I'm sure that there are a lot of creatives out there who would definitely want to get their feet wet, get involved in that sense. But yeah, that's absolutely amazing to hear. On another note, I'm sure you've already mentioned this before in terms of the with the litany of information you've already offered during this interview. But what types of podcasts and shows do you produce at AMI Radio, or to that end, even AMI TV?
Yeah, so the podcasts that we produce a few of them. A few of them are reading only, so they're audio only. Back when AMI first started, they were called voice print, and they would just have readers read newspapers and magazine articles to people that were tuned in. So we still have part of that with AMI Audio. So part of our suite of podcasts are the Washington Post, the Globe and Mail Today, and Voices of the Walrus. And those are all professional readers reading stories and editorials from either the Globe and Mail newspaper, the Walrus magazine, or the Washington Post. And so those are some podcasts that we've got going. We also have Double Tap, which is also available on YouTube as a video podcast. And this one is all about tech. It's our most popular podcast, and for good reason, because it's Stephen Scott and Sean Priest, who are both members of the partially sighted community. And every day they sit down and talk about tech and tech accessibility. So they go behind the scenes, like the new iPhone came out and that's all great, but how accessible is it? How do you use VoiceOver to access it? If you are a member of the hard of hearing community, what are some of the things that you can use in the accessibility settings that can make it more accessible? So they talk about the popular tech, but from an accessibility standpoint, and they get feedback and comments and questions from people all over the world. So that's called Double Tap, and you can check that out either on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting platform. The other one that I wanted to showcase from a podcast point of view is called Kelly and Company. And Kelly McDonald, who is a veteran broadcaster and member of the partially sighted community, he hosts an afternoon show on AMI every day that's also available as a podcast called Kelly and Company every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And he sits down for an hour and talks to contributors from across the country who are all members of the disability community. They may be talking about sports one day. They may be talking about the latest in TV or movies the next day. They may be talking about an event that's happening in the community that you live in, whether it might be a CNIB event or it might be a charity event that's happening. But Kelly sits down and talks to them about community. They also talk about larger things like health and wellness, that type of thing. But it really is kind of a lifestyle show that airs weekdays on AMI Audio and also available as a podcast.
That's absolutely amazing. That a broad range of shows for a broad range of listeners. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of all the shows and the podcasts that you create, do you feel that there are any misconceptions or common myths that surround sort of individuals with disabilities producing and consuming media at AMI?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as an able-bodied person, I learned pretty quickly that members of the disability community don't want to be pitied, but they do want to be represented. And so that's one of the things that that I've learned over my 6 years at AMI, and even before when I was doing freelance work, is that they want to be represented. You know, if an actor is a member of the disability community and they're as good as you know, an able-bodied actor, then they should be getting that gig, especially if it says on the casting sheet that that person is a wheelchair user. Get somebody that's a wheelchair user to play that role. They just want their stories to be told, and they've got the same stories that we tell. They go through the same stuff that we do. You know, but they just want that representation. Everybody wants to be represented, and everybody wants to tell their story. So I think that's a misconception that they don't want to be heard, because they do want to be heard. And also another misconception is that they don't necessarily need your help. When I first started working at AMI, I learned pretty quickly that even though someone might be blind or partially sighted, they don't need me to help them around the office, and don't expect me to help them. I learned pretty quickly to ask if somebody needs help, and that they will let me know, and to ask those questions. You know, I grew up as a kid in Southern Ontario, you know, kind of being told, oh, you know, don't look at the wheelchair user, or you know, something like that, because they were quote unquote different. I've learned pretty quickly that there is no difference between any of us. We all have the same hopes and dreams, and we all have really important stories to tell.
And I would absolutely agree with you as well, Greg. I mean, me personally, having grown up in the heart of Brampton in Southern Ontario, in that sense, I learned pretty quickly too that representation and authenticity are key to be able to not only being able to relate to the audience, but also tell your story and relate your experiences in a very authentic and very sympathetic way, to not sound like you're pitying, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I absolutely know what you mean. Yeah, yeah, you used the great word there, the hot button topic about pity, or and the other term that we use here at AMI is inspiration porn. You know, like, oh, isn't that great? You know, that you got out of the house. You know, even though you're a wheelchair user or whatever. Like, there's pity. They don't want your pity.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I mean, apart from pity, is there anything else that you see happening repeatedly to individuals with disabilities that shouldn't be happening? And how do we go about stopping?
Whoa, that is a huge question. The first thing that jumped into my mind right away is accessibility. You know, as simple as you know, a ramp to get into a building, I think are some of the biggest complaints that I hear on a regular basis. You know, you mentioned Brampton, and I know that Southern Ontario got a lot of snow recently, and here I live north of Ottawa. We got a lot of snow, and all of a sudden, when the sidewalks aren't accessible, then how do people get around? When you have to rely on transit, and you're a wheelchair user, or you're blind or partially sighted, and you need to rely on transit, it can be really hard to get around. You know, you have severe mobility issues when there's a lot of snow. So that's kind of the one that seems to jump to my mind the most, is are making sure that buildings outside of your own are fully accessible, that you can get in and out. You know, Braille, Braille being used, and also when it comes to, you know, using Uber and other ride sharing services, making sure that that the drivers that are doing that for a gig are making sure that they're doing all that they can for members of the disability community, and, you know, not just expecting that you can drop somebody who's off in a new location that's blind or partially sighted knows exactly where they're supposed to go. Because even though the tech can really help with that, I think that people need to just think of the disability community and make sure that they're accessible in all the ways that they can be.
And I would definitely agree. And on the note of on the note of the snow, the massive amounts of snow that were that just came down in the past weekend or so, even I could like even me being an able body like a more able bodied person myself, I could even I had chills. I felt chills running down my spine the entire time while I was out on the street in Toronto during the Canadian International Auto Show. Even like heading down there and then heading back home, the streets were completely blanketed in slush and snow, and it was already hard enough walking around and getting around. It's rough, yes, but I do agree with you in the sense of making the walkways and pathways outside of a home or a building more accessible to people of all abilities. So yeah, that I definitely agree with you there. Now a few more now as we near our time together, we have I'm sure all of our listeners, especially the creative minds out there, would like to hear about a success story if you have one to share. It doesn't necessarily need to be it doesn't necessarily need to be about what a show was, but is there a success story that you could share with us about what happened when someone sent in a really great idea or had a really great audition or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I mentioned Got Game off the top and Josh. So I think the biggest success story I think the proudest that I feel is the paid internships and the paid apprenticeships. I don't know about you, Davey, but I've done internships before where you really weren't doing too much work. You were, maybe making notes, or you were, running stuff off in a photocopier. I'm showing my age because do people even use photocopiers anymore? But I didn't really learn too much from the internship. But what we do at AMI is like, if you want to learn, you're going to learn. So if you want to be an intern or an apprentice at AMI and you want to learn more about producing or hosting or making a podcast, then you're going to learn how to do it. If you want to be part of the marketing and communications team and you want to learn about posting to social media or creating a paid social media campaign or write a press release, then you're going to do that with the marketing and communications team. Same thing with a TV show. You're come up with a TV show idea, you're going to be with that all the way to it getting on the air. So that's what I'm proudest about is the internship and apprenticeship programs that really, really help those creatives make their not only learn but also make something that could potentially make it to air. That's what I get really excited about.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't? To be able to see your dream come to life, your creative vision come to life would definitely be inspirational. And to that end, I would even say too that for myself, I mean, you're not the only one. You shouldn't have to feel bad about the showing your age thing because I'm still of the mentality of of playing vinyl records and even watching my stuff on DVDs. So, not like in an era of streaming and all that and whatnot these days. But yeah, and I can even relate too on the whole creative end. I wouldn't have been roped into being part of community partners if it wasn't for my interning at Connect for Life, the station's the station's charity partner when I was doing that requirement for my college education. And honestly, it was an absolute dream of mine to be able to even get into this avenue as well. Even though my training wasn't necessarily in anything creative or radio or so to speak. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you and completely support the idea of if you get of getting into this sort of creative avenue and being able to explore your ideas and even putting the work in and seeing your vision come to life. So I'm sure that and I know that you've already said it a bunch already, but yeah, it would give anybody a feeling of pride just to see their work come to life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if any of our listeners are out there are interested and are looking for more information, how can they reach you?
Easiest way is that info email address, so info@ami.ca. If you have any questions about more about what we do, if you want to ask about the internships and apprenticeships, if you want to find out more about how to go that route to creating your own content with AMI, use that email address. If you have any other questions about what we do as a company, shoot us an email at that email address and we can help you out.
Yeah, and that was absolutely fantastic talking with you, Greg. Thank you so much again for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Davey. It was great to talk to you.
Well, Great to talk to you as well. And with that, folks, we've reached the end of yet another amazing interview. You're listening to Community Partners presented by Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. I'm your host, Davy Au. Be safe, be kind, and I'll see you all next time.